In this video, I'm going to show you how to maximize how long of a burn you get with the wood stove. I'm going to show you a trick that I haven't seen in any other video, so stay tuned. So how do you get a long burn with the wood stove? You know, most people would tell you just close the airflow. So the little slider on the stove that opens the airflow, just close it down and you'll get a long burn. And this is in large part true, because the concept of getting a long burn is to minimize the airflow around the wood. Well, one way is to close the air intake off, but another way is how you position the wood within the stove. See, a lot of people will just put the wood in however it fits. We'll kind of crisscross it in there. And if you do that, the wood's going to burn really fast because there's going to be a lot of air gaps between the wood. What you want to do is stack it in such a way that it's stacked very tightly, so that way the air can't flow between the wood, in which case it will burn slower. Take a look at how this wood is stacked. Basically, when you put the wood in a stove, you want to stack it just like this. You want to have it really tightly together. And one thing that I'm going to mention that nobody else has that I've seen is the real trick is how you cut the wood. You need to cut the wood to a uniform length, so that way it will fit in there as tightly as possible. And to do this, I literally have measured the inside of this stove. So whether you measure widthwise or lengthwise, get a measurement to see how big it is, and then cut the wood the length it needs to be to fit in the stove, however you want to put it, widthwise or lengthwise. Putting it in lengthwise will supposedly make it burn a bit faster, and widthwise is a bit slower. I have mine cut to go in lengthwise because I have a very small stove, so I want it to burn a bit quicker. But when I cut this wood with my chainsaw, I literally measure the wood. See that? Let's put this piece on top here. You see, it's just about the same size. It's not perfect, but it's just about. And all of these pieces of wood are all just about the same length. So when I put these in there lengthwise, they're going to fit perfectly from the back to the front of the stove. They'll go just behind the lip there, and you'll see when I do it. So I got my welding gloves on, and I'm going to have a nice smooth bed of coals here to smooth them out a bit. And I'm just going to start putting the wood inside the stove. So I'll take some big pieces, put them on the bottom. I put them in lengthwise, just like that. And look how tight they are. There's a very little gap there. And that's the goal. You see how uniform they fit? So I can slide more wood in here by doing this. So that's one thing that's going to make it burn longer, is having more wood in the stove. But there's also less air getting between the wood. Let's see if I get this last piece in. So you see, I have it in there lengthwise, and the airflow is minimal. It's not, there's not much gaps between the wood. So I'll leave the door open for a bit and let it catch. And when it does, I'll close the door, and this will burn for a good 4 to 5 hours before it needs any more wood. And this stove is pretty small. So for it to last this long is a pretty good sign. As you can see, it's starting to catch. So pretty soon I'm going to close the door, and I'm not going to bother opening the damper. The damper is about 3/4 of the way closed. The air intake, that is. And I'll just leave it there. And the fire might go out a little bit, but it's still going to last. It's not going to go out completely. Okay, so after only a few minutes of letting that wood catch again, I closed the door. And this will continue to burn slowly for the next 4 to 5 hours, just like this. I'm going to leave the damper about 3/4 of the way closed, and this will go for quite some time. So that's the real secret, is cutting the wood to the proper length. You want to measure it before you cut it with your chainsaw, and take care to cut it nice and straight, so that way they're all uniform size. When you have logs that are different size, you're going to enable air to flow between them more easily, and you just don't want that. It will make it burn up a lot quicker. So I hope you learned something, and stay tuned. I will keep making videos just like this in the future.